the statue of General Reynolds, was it?
Yeah.
The location of this obelisk is where President Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address on November 19th, 1863. From that spot. Rings of graves that surround the obelisk where Lincoln gave his Gettysburg Address. They continue in circle all the way surrounding the obelisk. These are all graves of unknown soldiers. The only identification appears to be the individual numbers placed on the marker. They stretch in a circle around the spot where Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address. Okay.
This is the site of the morning of the first day's battle. The Confederate troops approached from this tree line in front of us and crossed this field. This position that we're standing on now was held by John Buford with his cavalry brigade, and they were here approximately along the line of this snake rail fence. They opposed the Confederate onslaught across McPherson's fields here, and they were forced back to a position behind us, about halfway between here and that steeple. You can see, just barely make out the cupola of the Lutheran seminary that was used by both sides as an observation post during the first day's battle. Can you get me from there? This is a statue of John Burns, a resident of Gettysburg, who came out to join the fight on his own. He joined Buford's cavalry here. He was well in his 70s and was shot 3 times during the day. He survived the fight, and Lincoln asked to meet him when he came here to make his famous Gettysburg Address. This is the morning of the first day after the fight that Buford had over by McPherson's barn. There was about an hour's lull. Union troops kept pouring in for reinforcements, and they extended the Union line to just about the point where we are now at the Eternal Light Memorial. The Confederates attacked from our right to our left, and the infantry was to our front, and they rolled up the guns to the point where we are now on Oak Hill. And as you can see, there's just an open field of fire they had against the Union Army. The Union Army was forced back across these fields to our left, to the line of monuments off into the trees to our left. They still at that time were a fighting force. From the eternal flame, the monuments that were on our left are where we're standing now. This is the position that the Union troops held late in the afternoon of the first day. The Confederate attack reassembled and struck the lines here and the lines below us and broke the entire Union line. While the Union positions held this line here and were engaged in battle with the Confederates coming towards us from this position, other Union regiments were rushing to reinforce us in the line of monuments off in the middle of those fields. Before they were able to reach this position, they were hit in the flank and the front by Confederate infantry. And after a sustained battle, they were forced to retire, which left this line that we're standing on now untenable, and it too had to fall back through the town.
And where did it fall back to?
It fell back into the town of Gettysburg and back to Cemetery Hill, which can be seen at the foot of that water tower on the horizon. The morning's battle, when this area changed hands several times, Confederate troops hid here in this, at the time was an unfinished railroad cut, and were captured en masse. About 250 Mississippians were captured here. And I would guess, about 6 months to a year ago, they were doing some repair work to the tracks that are now in place, and they found a Confederate body, and it was reinterred in Richmond.
They didn't say, okay, it's a farm, you got all do that. So it started by the farms, the houses. There was some land bought the same year that I was
2 and 3.
On the afternoon of July the 3rd, from these fields here, in ranks 3 deep, Confederates began Pickett's charge. The line was a mile from that to that, a mile wide and 3 deep. And their point of attack, corpse of trees right directly in front of us, across these fields. It's almost a mile between this point and that. And they received fire all the way. 12,000 Confederate troops went across, less than 6 came back. here at the statue of the North Carolina Monument. It shows how a wounded man is passing the flag to another man, and they're bracing themselves forward in the charge, for Pickett's charge. 1 in every 4 who died in this field was from North Carolina. This is a statue to Robert E. Lee, erected by the state of Virginia. It's supposed to be one of the best likenesses of Lee ever made, and also one of the best likenesses of Traveler. It was from this position that Lee watched the attack of Pickett as they went across and then came back from those fields across the way. This is the view that Lee would have had when he watched his men leave for the attack, and when the attack was broken as they fell back, and he rode out from here to meet them, explaining that he felt this was all his fault. The guns you see out back here behind us are Confederate guns that were rolled out to support the infantry as they made their attack across this field with General Pickett. However, because of the proximity to their own troops, they didn't fire a whole lot of support. On the afternoon, the second day, July the 2nd, Longstreet launched his attack from here. He was headed towards that peach orchard directly to our right. His line would extend from the Red Barn, the Cadore Barn, clear back to Little Round Top, way to our right. The attack in itself probably would have been successful, except that Sickles had left his line on Little Round Top and moved to that peach orchard, so that he hit him. Longstreet hit Sickles directly in the flank. And it delayed the army long enough so that the Union line could repair itself. We're on Little Round Top now on the absolute flank, left flank of the whole Union Army. This was the position of the 20th Maine as it sat here. Came roughly from that large boulder to my left. Back around to the current marker to my right. Then one company of the regiment peeled back at an angle, back behind where the camera is shooting now. When the attack came from the Alabamians, they came from Big Round Top, which is behind me, and came right up to this position here to try to force the 20th Maine out. And they were unable to do so. The 20th Maine fired until they ran out of ammunition. They fixed bayonets and they ran down this hill behind me and broke up the charge of the Alabamians. In fact, they took the colonel prisoner, Colonel Oates. This is the top of Little Round Top. Confederates attacked from behind me, right towards this position, right up over these rocks. And it was able to be defended by a very late arrival of Strong Vincent's brigade, of which the 20th Maine was a part. They took up positions here and successfully repulsed the Confederate attack. Devil's Den is behind us, the big boulders behind us. And the sweep came right directly up over these stones here. The attack came this way. This is a view that the Confederates would have had when I charged across the Valley of the Death, which behind me. They would have focused their attack on Little Round Top, which is the bald hill directly over my shoulder. Devil's Den would be off to my left. This is the area known as the wheat field. It was the site of many, many casualties here. About 6,000 men died right here. The cannon over behind my left shoulder were abandoned by the Union on the first try to take the field. They were recaptured by the Irish Brigade in the second attempt. The Irish Brigade swept back across the field to my right and up what they called at the time the Rocky Hill. It's covered with trees now, but at the time it was called the Rocky Hill. And they fought the Confederates man to man. In fact, they were firing across the same rocks at each other. Very bloody. 6,000 men right here were killed.
This is the monument erected to the New York 63rd, 69th, and 88th Brigades that are known as the New York Irish Brigades. Depicted as an Irish wolfhound at the base of the monument.
Here we are on the line of the Union. We're here at the bloody angle of the Union line. On the third day of the battle, this is where Pickett brought his charge to. It started from beyond my right shoulder. You can just see the statue of Lee across the way. Lee's cannons were all in the tree line there and prepped this area for 2 hours with cannon fire, with artillery prep. Lee watched his men come this way over a mile from the position they left, and that was their objective, that corp of tree right over there. They actually got inside the Union lines at that area,